All right, guys, welcome to Fantasy Football. Week 17 championship starts and sits. Going to give you guys all the optimal players to start at each position. I'm excited to dive in. Can you believe Week 17 is here? The championship is here. Going to go through all the positions, give you all the optimal starts, and I hope everybody had an outstanding Christmas because we are now starting to roll over into 2024. So if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys do hit that subscribe button. Subscribe below and drop your questions below. This is what we worked hard for, and a lot of guys pulled through last week. We're talking Breece Hall. We're talking Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, mind you, this year was crazy at the quarterback position because a lot of quarterbacks that were starters didn't start, and that effect rippled down to the other positions. You know, you got other guys that shouldn't be starting, and again, that's going to impact fantasy significantly. This was the year of the quarterback shuffle. It was absolutely insane. So if you're new to the channel, subscribe. We're going to start rolling out 2024 content moving forward, and we're going to walk you guys through all the optimal players at each position. Drop your questions below. We'll get to all of them. Can you believe it? Week 17 is here. And again, we're going to keep rolling out that content for you guys the entire off season, okay? Off season, we're starting to roll out some of the surprise of this year, some highlights of this year, and how to avoid potential pitfalls that happen this year so we don't go into next year. Top 10 projections for next year, early talk, early sleepers, all that's going to roll out immediately following, including playoff talk, immediately following, guys, this week. Because again, fantasy does not end here. We go year round, so subscribe below. Now, this chart is very easy to follow, this algorithm here, okay? I'm going to explain this to you guys very simply for you. For example, Brock Purdy here, great matchup. I know he didn't have the greatest week last week, but check this out. San Fran versus Washington, great matchup versus position. Kyler Murray, great matchup. If it's green and there's a 32, that means there's 32 teams. That is the easiest matchup. See, it's green 32, very easy to follow. Theoretically, this is on paper based on the entire year, okay? Every week is different. Now, my advice to you guys, particularly in championship week, for playoff week or any week for that matter, is start a player that's been consistent. I always go back 3 weeks. If I'm torn on a player to start, I go back 3 weeks and I make a decision on that. How well did they do the past 3 weeks? Then I make a decision. So, for example, if a player had 3 weeks consecutive, if they had 20 points, 20 points, 20 points, that's pretty consistent numbers. You want to look at that. And if you're comparing it to a guy who's volatile, you may want to lean towards the more consistent player. But this is just going to give you a graphical measure on how tough the matchups are. So Brock Purdy, Kyler Murray, Bryce Young. Obviously, if you got a better option than Bryce Young, you're going to start him. He had 25 points last week. You see Brock Purdy had 6. You know, Brock Purdy was consistent, 26 and 25 the weeks prior. So you got to look at consistency. One down week doesn't mean they're going to completely bust. So if you got Brock, I still think he's a great start and a great matchup. Dak Prescott as well here, guys. You may want to consider Dak Prescott. And again, 19, 7, and 20 points last week. A little inconsistent, had that one down week, but a great matchup this week as well, okay? So you got to take a look at these matchups here. Jalen Hurts, good matchup. Will Levis, a little banged. I mean, he had Tannehill came in, he was banged up. But Will Levis, if there's a better option, definitely go him. We got to check his injury status, okay? Again, you always want to be checking your player, how the news is on them. Just Google, Will Levis news if you're going to make a decision on starting him. Pat Mahomes, you've been relatively safe and consistent. Not the greatest numbers as of late. But again, if you got Pat Mahomes, you drafted him early, you got to start him, okay? So Pat Mahomes, great matchup. Jalen Hurts, Russell Wilson, great matchup here. Dak Prescott, all great matchups. The guys that have it in tough, just so you're aware. Flacco, who's been absolutely consistent, believe it or not. Can you believe it? People are considering starting Flacco. He's winning people fantasy championships. I thought this guy was retired. He's still doing it, right? So Joe Flacco, been consistent. Tua, Trevor Lawrence. I mean, these guys, if you look at Tua, 16 points last week. Trevor Lawrence, I don't really trust him. Tough matchups versus position. So Flacco, consistent, but tough matchup versus the Jets secondary. Tua, Trevor, Sam Howell, Geno Smith, Jake Browning, tough matchup. A lot of people ask me if they should start Jake Browning this week. If you got a better option, maybe consider that. He does have it in a little bit tough, but he has been consistent, okay? But again, just so you guys are aware of the tougher matchups. Jared Goff, I think he's a safe play this week, mid-range matchup. And all the other guys you can see here, Jordan Love, Matt Stafford, all mid-range matchup, including Nick Mullins, okay? So you guys are aware of who's got it in tough and who's got it in good, right? Moving on to the running back position. Let's transition here to the running backs here. And again, I take full ownership on Christian McCaffrey when we're talking running backs. The guy has absolutely tore it up. I don't know what to tell you. I thought that he would have gone down based on injury this year, but he didn't. He stayed healthy, good offense. He's done well. Now, these are the guys that have a good matchup versus position. So you need to be aware of this. This is very, very important, okay? So DeAndre Swift, 15 points last week, not the greatest. Austin Eckler, great matchup. Hopefully he can win some fantasy championships. He's been a big bust this year. Travis Etienne, good matchup, had a dud last week, 6 points. Josh Jacobs, I mean, he had a couple 0 points. Injuries plagued him, but if he plays, good matchup. Zamir White, great matchup versus position versus Indy. Christian McCaffrey must start. Look at him. 19, 45, and 28 points consecutively. Amazing. Najee's been safe and boring at best, but does have a great matchup this week. You need to be aware of that. Again, am I starting Najee if I don't have a better option? I guess I have to. Guys like Kareem Hunt here, Cleveland running backs, Jerome Ford, good matchup versus position. Kyren Williams, great matchup versus position. You need to be aware of that, guys. Kyren Williams. Ty Chandler, again, good match. I would go ahead and start him. Good matchup here. Ty Chandler had that big week a couple weeks ago, had a bit of a down week last week. Jonathan Taylor, great matchup. All these guys, great matchup. Javonte Williams has been kind of boring and safe as of late. As you can see his points here, 12 points last week, not the greatest. But again, good matchup versus position. Be aware of that. And Kenneth Walker, good, decent matchup against position. Who's got it in rough? You need to be aware. Again, my advice for any starts and sits, go back 3 weeks. How good and consistent are they, and make a decision. At this point in the championship, you should know who to start. Guys, it's not brain surgery here. If you got a player, he's been consistent, he's been good all year, start him. It's your championship time. And some people are questioning certain players. Ride them. If they've been good to you, ride them. If you drafted them early, ride them. This is it. It's championship time. It's not a time to start gambling. You got to make sure you guys have the right people, okay? Saquon Barkley, tough matchup, but consistent last week, 19 points. Start him. It's a tough matchup on paper, but you got to start him. He's a high draft capital guy. Tony Pollard, your high draft capital guy. He sucked all year, had a couple good games. 2 bad weeks as of late. 5 points, 8 points. But I mean, if you got him, you got to start him. Again, tough matchup versus Detroit. Third hardest versus position, as you can see here. Be aware. If you got a better option, go with that, okay? Who else do we got here? Alvin Kamara, obviously you're going to start him, but 5th hardest matchup versus position. It's just about being aware, guys. It's about being aware and making an executive decision. Again, Alvin Kamara, tough matchup here. Again, those are you guys with tough matchups. Saquon, Tony Pollard, a couple of big names with tough matchups. Alvin Kamara, but again, you cannot sit some of these guys. Raheem Mostert does have it in tough versus Baltimore. You need to be aware of that, okay? Very important. Brian Robinson, he's been banged up, as you can see. Antonio Gibson might be a safe play here. Again, check the news status before the game. Gus Edwards has been kind of boring, but 14 points, that's safe and secure when you're looking at a running back. Aaron Jones, 18-point week last week. All these guys have tough matchups. Singletary's been safe, tough matchup, 10th hardest versus position. And you got to start Breece Hall, 11th hardest matchup versus position versus Cleveland, coming off a 43-point game. You got to start the beast. Having a quick drink here, some pre-workout, getting ready to do a workout here. So I'm fired up, guys. The championships. Now you know who's got it in tough and who's got it in good. Again, ATNs of the world, Swifts of the world, Christian McCaffrey, all these guys, Najee Harris, all these guys, Kareem Hunt, Kyren Williams, all good matchups versus position. Ty Chandler, consider starting them and just be aware that the matchup is favorable and that could work towards your favor. Moving on to wide receivers. Wide receivers have been very volatile this year because there's a lot of teams that have a bunch of wide receiver ones, and we don't know. It's like, is it Puka? Is it Cooper Kupp? Is it Christian Watson throughout the year? Was it Jalen Reed? Was it Romeo Dobbs? There's been a lot of question marks, right? So it's about being aware, guys, and trying to find the most consistent player and then matching it up with the matchups and see who's been good to you all year, okay? Rondale Moore, great matchup. Do I start him? No, he sucks. 6 points last week, 3 points the week before, 2 the week before. Just because it's a good matchup doesn't mean you start him. But as you can see, good matchup versus position if you need some sort of flex or in a deeper league. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, great matchup versus position. Hopefully that could sway you in one way or another. Cortland Sutton, good matchup versus position. Check the injury here. He didn't play last week or he's banged up or something. And then you got Jerry Jeudy, 7 points last week. Again, good matchup though, okay? Chris Olave, he's been hot, man. He's been good. He had 1 good week last week. Good matchup. And 3rd easiest versus position. So you may want to consider Some Chris Olave there for you. If you got him, you got to start him. CeeDee Lamb must start for sure, and a great matchup definitely helps, including Brandon Cooks, who could have himself a good week as well. Had a 10-pointer last week. Again, not the greatest numbers, but again, great matchup, favorable, okay? Rashee Rice has been consistent, must start for sure. Cooper Kupp, definitely been hot near the stretch. Puka was the beneficiary the last time they came out. And, easy matchup versus position, like the sixth easiest matchup versus position, great. You may definitely want to start Cooper Kupp and Puka, but again, you're kind of playing wide receiver roulette when it comes to these guys. Just be aware of that, okay? Adam Thielen, safe past couple 3 weeks. Definitely want to consider starting him. Chark had a big week last week, but be aware, the weeks prior, 3 and 5 points, it was a big week. I saw the touchdown. I think he had 1 or 2 touchdowns. Is that going to continue? I don't know. Very unlikely. Again, you got to take a look at the guy that's been more consistent, maybe the Adam Thielen, right? Wan'Dale Robinson, it's a bit of a crapshoot here with the Giants. But I mean, if you want boring numbers, 5 and 7, Slayton's been a little bit more consistent here. So I think Slayton's a safe start here if you are looking at the Giants, okay? George Pickens, again, big game. Remember this. This is a guy that was getting ridiculed, including myself, ridiculing him for not making plays and, performing blocks. If you saw that one play where Jaylen Warren was running to the touchdown for a touchdown and he just avoided a block, saying he wanted to preserve his body, didn't want to get injured like Tank Dell. So he comes back and bounces back with a big game. It's not sustainable. I just don't see this being sustainable with his 39 points. Just not going to happen. Romeo Doubs and, the Packers versus Minnesota, great matchup versus position. Him and Reed, very touchdown dependent though. I do like Nico Collins this week. I really do. If you got Nico, definite must start. Let's take a look at the guys that have rough matchups. Now, if I don't mention them, they have a mid-range matchup, okay? Amari Cooper coming off a 55-point game. Remarkable stuff. Is that going to continue this week? No, but I think he still has a solid game, although he does have a tough matchup versus the Jets. Be aware of that. DJ Moore, been crappy the past couple weeks, but tough matchup versus position. Be aware. T. Higgins, great week past couple weeks. You may want to consider starting him either way, but third hardest matchup versus position. Be aware of that, okay? Garrett Wilson, I would go ahead and start Garrett. He's been consistent the entire year. Fourth hardest matchup versus position. Awareness is good. Calvin Ridley coming off a big week, 26 points. Is that going to continue? Is that sustainable? I don't know. I doubt it. But him and Amon-Ra St. Brown, both tough matchups, but definitely got to start them. You cannot sit these guys, okay? But be aware of the tough matchup. Tyreek Hill, tough matchup versus position. Him and Waddle. Waddle got banged up. I think he's questionable. But Tyreek Hill, a must start. 7th hardest matchup versus position. Guys like Demario Douglas, who's been safe and solid, 8th hardest matchup versus position. Again, it's up to you guys to make these executive decisions. Mike Evans, 9th hardest matchup versus position, but you're not going to sit him. Devontae Adams putting up a goose egg, man, 1 point. Crapping the bed, okay? But are you going to sit him? 10th hardest matchup versus position, high draft capital guy. I mean, you drafted him, why not start him, okay? Josh Palmer, definitely a safe start as well. Boring, but 11th hardest matchup versus position. Michael Pittman, 0 points last week. Again, I would go Josh Downs as a safe flex play at best here from this offense. Again, take a look at the injury status on Michael Pittman. Drake London, very boomer bust. Good week 3 weeks ago, had a couple duds, but Drake London also a safe play at best. But again, very volatile, but I think he bounces back, okay? So again, being aware, who are the guys have good matchups? Who are the guys that have bad matchups? Make an executive decision. Again, start them. Look at how consistent they have been in 3 weeks. If you're torn between 2 players, you have to go with your gut feeling, okay? Let's take a look here at the tight end. With tight end, guys, Gerald Everett, great matchup. Travis Kelce, great matchup. I'm going to give you guys some defenses to stream as well, okay? As you can see here, all green here. Travis Kelce been kind of on the downwards trend. It seems like a bit of a collapse here with the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know, man. They seem like they're having a rough time. And I don't know whether it's a coaching thing, if it's Nagy, if it's, Taylor Swift. I did a video on my Joe Camo show talking about how, Travis Kelce cannot control his emotions. Go check that out. Joe Camo show. Just released a video on that. You definitely want to watch that. Go watch the video. Darren Waller, again, good matchup, been inconsistent here. Juwan Johnson's been kind of safe the past couple of weeks. You may want to consider him. Jake Ferguson's been safe and boring as well. Like, again, if you got a guy like Laporta, he had a bad week last week, but I'm not sitting Laporta. I'm going to start him. Laporta doesn't start. Dalton Kincaid, been very inconsistent the past couple weeks. Dalton Schultz been consistent. Start him, but tough matchup. Again, this is not hard, guys. If they're putting up 10 points consistently, start them, okay? Start them. And again, when someone has a down week, look for an up week the week after. Again, I think Laporta is going to be a safe start this week as well, coming off a down week. And I've got him, here as a mid-range matchup here, okay? Well, I've got him at 14th hardest, which means it is a mid-range matchup. He's in the mid-pack, coming off a 5-point week, but a 29 before, so look for him to trend upwards. So Laporta, I do like. George Kittle, I do like mid-range matchup here. And again, it gets boring after that. You got your Higbees and stuff like that, guys that I don't really trust. But those are some of the guys with good matchups. Again, Kelsey, great matchup. Look for a bounce back there. Like I said, Juwan Johnson, good matchup. Again, take a look, see who's been good the past 3 weeks, start them. And again, now you've got an idea of who the matchups are. Defenses to stream. Cleveland, great matchup versus the Jets. Rams versus the Giants. 49ers versus Washington, you definitely can't stream them. Someone owns them for sure. I like Bills versus New England. Jacksonville versus Carolina, another great matchup here. But again, Carolina, you never know with those guys, right? Sometimes they put up decent games. Jets versus Cleveland, decent matchup here. Cleveland can put up some points, so I'm not really too sure about that one here. Falcons could be a good defensive stream. I do like Texans at home against Tennessee as well. Packers versus Minnesota. And the nice thing is, guys, with all these quarterbacks that are just getting integrated or backups and who are coming in, right? Guys like, let's take a look at the quarterback position here, right? You got guys that, Tommy DeVito or Will Levis if he plays, or Easton Sticks of the world. We don't know how they could do. So if there's a defense playing against them, there's an upside in that defense. So you need to be aware of that, okay? That's pretty much it. So when you're looking at defenses, man, I'm telling you, take a look at matchups, go back 3 weeks. How consistent are they, okay? Now, again, I gave you a big overview. There's a lot of talking going on here. But, guys, this is championship week. So, again, you know your team at this point. They got you this far. Start the people that are consistent. And one of the big problems is sometimes if your team is too good, you're torn between two starters. In that case, again, go back, watch this video, see who's got the optimal start, who's done well the past 3 weeks, how consistent are they, and go with the gut feeling to make that ultimate decision on if you're torn between two players, because the gut feeling actually plays a big factor, all right? Championship week, guys. Subscribe, thumbs up, leave a comment below if you have a question, and I'm going to keep rolling out the 2024 content. Make sure you guys are subscribed. We're going to keep rolling them up for you, all right? Thank you for being here, guys. Lion mentality. 2024 is going to be massive. Subscribe, thumbs up. Bye.